and interestingly, has also recently decided to help promote Zhilei Zhang following that impressive win back in April at the Copper Box. So Frank, a little bit on both sides, somewhat today. He says
Not
no.
at all. Joyce, I want to see him get out there and regain his title.
We'll get to that in a minute. Also, of course, Adam Morali, who is the co-founder of S-Jam Boxing management team for Joe Joyce, and no introduction, Big Joe, of course, here. The Juggernaut, welcome back on stage, another press conference. You're getting used to these, aren't you?
Why, thank you.
Okay, let's speak first with Frank Warren, who is working with both men. So, first of all, busy summer for you, Frank, working with a lot of the top heavyweights, a lot of big negotiations, as I'm sure many of the boxing community realizes. There was even talk of Tyson Fury fighting with Zhang or even Joyce. So tell me, I know there was a rematch clause, so why was it the right decision to put Joyce against Zhang first before any of those other possible combinations?
When we made the fight, as you know, this is for the WBO interim title, the rematch, and Joe was champion before the last fight, and Zhang was number 2, so no messing about. He went straight to the guy who was his immediate challenger, and part of it was that we did put a rematch clause in there, and after the fight we weren't sure whether Joe was going to be ready, because he obviously he sustained quite a bad eye injury, which is the reason the doctor stopped the fight, the last fight. We were talking about Zhang fighting Tyson, but Joe said, no, I don't want no one in the middle of that. I want the rematch. I want to be in there. And that tells you all you need to know about Joe Joyce. Straight in there. No, nobody else is going to get in. I'm in. I want to win my title back. So that was his prerogative. And, he's got a very, very good management team around him. And Adam's, excellent what he's done, the work he's done. As part of that team, they insisted on it. So we delivered for him.
Okay, and tell us about your decision to sign Zhilei Zhang following that fight and what it's meant for Joe and for these negotiations.
We didn't sign him after the fight. We signed him before the fight because there's a rematch clause, and we took a couple of options on him because he got, which is normal practice. So we took a couple of options, but I've got to be honest, I didn't think we'd be using those options, but it happens, and that's what happens in boxing. So now, he came through, did what he had to do. As I said, the doctor stopped the fight. It's now up to Joe. Joe's a very sensible guy. He's one of the best people I've worked with in boxing. He's a nice person. As I say, he's got a great team. He knows what he's got to do, and they'll work on it. And I think he's got the capabilities of winning his titles back. If he wins them back, he then becomes not only the interim champion, he becomes the mandatory for the WBO version of the title. So who's ever holding that after the fight between Usyk and Daniel Dubois, which takes place in August. So it's all very interesting times, and Joe wants to be part of that. He wants to be back in the swing. He wants to get back in and do what he's got to do, and so he knows how important this fight is. He knows more how important this is than we all do. Mm-hmm. This is the most important probably moment in his career up to as yet. So I'm quite sure he's going to get in there, and I think he'll do it. And I still think, and a lot of people will say, I would say this, but I still think, had he not got the eye injury, it would have been interesting to see what had happened in that fight had it gone in the latter rounds, because I think it would have been a different result. Okay, you mentioned the importance of this fight. Zhang is 40 years old. Joe is 37, turning 38 a couple of weeks later, September 19th, is that correct? I remembered that one a couple of weeks after. And so just sum it up. How important is a win for either of these men in terms of where they're at in their career? That's the only birthday present he wants, to get his title back. That's all he's got to focus on, and it's important. Look, the heavyweight division at the moment, as much as a lot of people are moaning about some sort of inactivity, which is down to certain people, but that has been the position. But that's all going to happen, because reality is going to set in the next few weeks' time as to what will happen with this heavyweight division. And Joe needs to be part of that. He knows that, as I've just said, better than anybody. So he's got to go out, do the business, and get himself back in the swing. And whatever happens, we'll be with him anyway. but he's got to get in there and do the business. And I genuinely believe he's capable of doing that.
Yeah, but fair to say, big stakes for both fighters.
Yeah.
And Usyk Dubois is happening, as you mentioned, the week before, which is for the WBO belt amongst the other belts. So in terms of, obviously we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Tyson Fury yet, but for a direct challenge on the WBO belt, timing-wise, it lines up quite nicely, doesn't it?
Well, it's brilliant because at the end of the day, if it goes to plan, which I think it will do, you're going to see when they call for the WBO version of the belt, the fight, you're going to see a great rematch between Joyce and Daniel Dubois.
Okay, and just
that's what I think is going to happen. I think both of these guys are going to win their respective fights in the next couple of months.
Okay. And in terms of the fight itself, you felt that Joe was really coming through towards the time when the fight got stopped. What kind of fight are you expecting this time? How do you think it's going to be different?
It's going to have to be different. And it's as simple as that. I mean, Joe will work on his tactics with his training team and his trainer. And this man's 38 years of age. He's got the experience he's had in his lifetime in boxing, in Olympic Games, in Commonwealth Games, and in the pro game, and the level he's fought at as a heavyweight. I mean, very early in his career, before he was fighting guys who I wouldn't have been putting him in with to start with, to be quite honest, but that's what he did, and he was winning those fights. He knows what he's got to do. Okay. He knows what he's got to do, and what he's got to do is movement, head movement, and just use his speed. And I think he does that. I think, as I say, the fight will go on a bit, and I think he's capable of stopping Zhang in the latter rounds.
Okay, I have one final question for you, and then we're going to hear from the WBO current interim heavyweight champion, Zhilei Zhang, who has a couple of messages for us. Just one on the location, because there were discussions around having this rematch in China, in Beijing. 14 million people tuned in to the last fight from China. So why the decision to hold it here, and are there conversations around having future fights for Zhang in front of his people?
Look, there were some talks about at one stage doing it, but it's like all these things, you've got to make them happen, and it's what makes them happen is money and reality. Where people, you say there's 14 million people, but that didn't turn into 14 million people paying a lot of money for the fight to watch. It was volume, and where this generates the most income is in the UK, so that's where it's taking place. And also, I want it in this country because of Joe. I want Joe to have every advantage.
Okay, let's hear from the WBO interim heavyweight champion, Zhilei Zhang, who's got a couple of messages, I think, for you, Joe.
很多人认为中国除了重量级选手，我一直都相信，自信而努力的我们，相信中国人也会占据世界拳赛最中心。
Do you want me to translate that?
Is there a second message as well?
上次我创造了历史，对历史最好的继承就是创造新的历史。我把这场比赛当成全新的比赛，我把乔伊斯当成全新的对手。
Okay, he's looking at it as a new fight, as if he's never fought Joe before. I'm going to quickly have a couple of questions with Adam Morley, and then we're going to get Joe's reaction to that, and of course dig into Joe's preparations and how he's going to plan to win this fight. So Adam, first of all, as the co-founder of Western Boxing, Joe's management team must have been heartbreaking for you. I think a lot of people, especially in this country, did expect Joe to win that fight. What's your views on Joe's decision, instead of taking another route, to reface this big, powerful southpaw that had his number last time?
Yeah, look, any loss is tough to take. And certainly with Joe, we've been with Joe right from the beginning, and worked with Joe every day, and it was a brutal loss to take in lots of different ways. I agree with Frank. Had the eye not closed up, I think Joe would have gone on to win that fight. But he lost, and you've got to accept that fully. And as a team, we've looked at every aspect of what happened in that camp, and we're going to try and improve it and push forward. As for the regards as who Joe was going to fight next, I think right from the start, what have we been in this for? Joe to get a world title. And how does he get that world title? He gets the WBO interim belt back. And that's what he wanted to do. He wants that world title, and that's why we've gone for the rematch straight away. I mean, Joe also wants big fights. That's why he's in this game. He's in this game for big fights, big nights, and to entertain crowds. And I personally think this man is the heavyweight in the UK at the moment who's walking the walk, talking the talk. He's actually going out there and having big fights. It would be easy to have swerved Zhang, take someone a bit easier, and then take him later. But, you know, Joe takes on all comers.
To put it simply, why do you think Joe is going to win this time?
I think stylistically, people look at that fight and think it wasn't a great matchup for Joe because it was a southpaw. But I actually think stylistically it is a good matchup for Joe. He has the best engine in heavyweight boxing. Zhilei Zhang doesn't. Zhilei Zhang is going to fade later in that fight. And the public's going to see what happens round 7 to 12 of that fight. They've only seen the first half of the story. The second half of that story is completely different. By round 5, Joe was throwing, I think, 120 punches around. Zhang was throwing 30 punches around. Joe will continue to increase his punch output. Zhang's will go down. And you'll see in the next fight, a relatively static Zhang getting hit by loads of shots, rounds 9 and 10. I agree with Frank. I think that's when it'll be stopped.
Okay, and I will be asking Joe about this, but there was a lot of talk about the weight. Joe came out lighter than we've seen him before for this fight against a big guy. I mean, they're both 6'6", but Zhang has a big build, a big presence. Have you had conversations around the weight, around potentially how much impact that had?
Yeah, look, I think weight can often be obsessed about. I think it's about strength, and that's what we're focused on in the camp. You know, Joe could go and eat 5 guys for the next 3 months and come in at 300 pounds. Then everyone will say, oh, he's much bigger. It's not about that. We have a great strength and conditioning team with Larry and Devron, and we're working on strength, and it's a key part of our preparation.
Okay. Finally, give us your prediction, how you think it's going to unfold, how you think it's going to go down.
I think we've got a lot of respect for Zhang. He's a top heavyweight, and Joe's decision to take him on was a risky one. I think Zhang will put in a better performance than last time. I think he'll be very, very active from the start. He'll be confident. I think Joe will engage with him, start to break his confidence down, and then when Zhang enters round 7 and 8 and he's breathing heavily and he's got the Juggernaut going and getting faster and faster and faster, I think he will wilt under the pressure and eventually get stopped.
Okay, stamina being the key here. I'm getting that impression from both of you. So time to bring in the big man, Joe, Juggernaut Joe Joyce. So first of all, how have you been? How are you? How have you been the last 2.5 months since the first loss of your career? How have things been for you?
Well, they've been okay. Not the best, post fight thing. But I've had to rebuild, time to rebuild, relax, and let my hand down a little bit and reflect on what went down and what I need to do to get back on the horse and ride into the sunset. No, but back to the drawing boards and just like little improvements and things, and kind of nitpicking and stuff, like things that I need to get right for this next camp coming up. And I think watching it back and seeing the shots thrown and landing and stuff, and it was terrible for me to witness that and experience that and the after effect. But it's all a learning curve, and I've taken losses in amateurs and come back and I won a silver medal, or if not a gold medal. So I can do it again in the pros, and I've got the experience and the drive, and I don't want to take the long route, the long way round to get back to the title. All I have to do is beat him, and I'm back in line for a mandatory shot. So that's important to me, and I want to be a world champion, and I want to deliver and achieve my dreams and goals and aspirations. So that's why I'm here.
Was it a big decision for you to take this rematch again? Because a lot of people saying, he just doesn't suit you, and you could have taken another route. Yeah,
it's the quickest route back in, and I want to be in big fights. It's a massive fight. There's no other fights happening now. You think fights are going to happen and they don't happen. This fight's definitely going to happen.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, lines out ready to go. Look, on the one hand, the fight went the way it did. On the other hand, it seemed to be the same tactic from him over and over again. That straight left down into your right eye. So,
Well, if it's working, then
so what are
I
you
wouldn't
going to
change
do?
it.
So what are you going to do this time to make sure he can't use that tactic again?
Come with more tactics and other options as well to do, and more time to get used to the southpaw style, because it's been a long time, and it's I had a camp to prepare for it. Now I've got 2 camps, so I've already been in there with him, so I kind of know what to expect. Even though he's probably going to be improved and more confident in this fight, so it's just on me to really kick things up a notch and go into another gear and really analyze and be a lot more smart and more defensive, and to be a lot better boxer.
Yeah,
for
you
this fight.
mentioned defensive, head movement was talked about a lot. 4.5 months, is that enough time to correct the things that needed to be corrected?
Oh, I hope so. We'll have to tune. You have to tune in and watch me, won't you?
It's fresh in your head.
All right, and then in terms of those tactics, the weight is also something people were talking about. Do you feel, looking back, that the weight affected you, and is that something you're looking at doing differently?
Yeah, I felt that Zhang is a very big unit, and he can take a punch, and he certainly showed he can give it, and very fast, deceptively fast. It was really fast, because as I was trying to return my guard, he was already hit me. Like as I was throwing, he was already coming back with the counters, and he's been southpaw, all his career, to the Olympics and the pros. So he's it's second nature to fight as someone who's orthodox. But for me, it's not second nature. It's something I have to think about and I have to prepare for, and that's what I'm going to have to do.
Did you want to carry on in that fight? Were you frustrated that the ref stopped it?
Yeah, because I'm a proper man. I want to go out on my shield, and I felt like I could carry on. I could still see I could still see the finger, so I wanted to carry on. I wanted to win the fight, and it was stopped. I thought, and I was still hitting him, and I think, but I mean, maybe it saved me for myself, and I can rebuild and review and reflect and analyze what I did wrong and correct them and what a better story, getting the titles back and then going on to be a world champion and all that, the rest. But it's all part of the story, part of the journey.
You still want that fight with Tyson Fury or Usyk or even Dubois?
Yeah.
Is that what you want next?
If they'll fight me. Yeah, no, I just need to get my titles back. Then I've got all the options back, and the ball's back in my court. I'm back on my horse.
And you've got more of a
more experience.
more of a chip to play with as well.
Yeah.
Do you feel you underestimated him? You were riding high going into that last fight. You were unbeaten, a lot of media attention. Did complacency play a big part in this, and how different is your mentality going into this one?
Yeah, my mentality, and I think I've got a job to do, and I'm focused on what I need to do going back into camp. I'm sure like the team and also the little bits that maybe didn't go so well, that need to be improved, can get like polished off and go again more glossier and shinier, and rip the title back and march on.
Okay, so I want to know from you how you think it's going to unfold, and then we're going to have you give your message back to Zhilei Zhang over in China. So first of all, your prediction, Joe.
You, Joe.
You, Joe. How do you see it unfolding? We've heard a lot about stamina maybe being the key. What do you think might happen?
I think
obviously you're not giving your game plan away, but
yeah, no, I think Zhang, is an experienced guy, and he knows he's very smart in his team, so they know the tactics, and for the first fight, they definitely know it for this fight, so they'll be doing all they can to, he's going to be even better, even more confident, even stronger probably, so it's going to be even tougher test, but once I beat him and overcome that test, then it's a lot more reward. It will feel a lot more rewarding for me, I think.
Are you excited, confident? Tell me the emotions.
It still seems a long way off. I've just started, I've got back in the gym and getting ready to go to back out to Vegas, and yeah, it seems quite a long way off, but yeah, I'm ready and I'm pumped, and this is my route back to the title and to my dreams.
I also think if you look at the long term, there's improvements that Joe will make here and things Joe's had to do to get over this loss that will, when you look at Joe's career as a whole, really, really benefit him. Like, if Joe had beaten Zhang, would we be going into camps and looking at things in such detail to make those improvements? Maybe
Absolutely.
not. Maybe you don't do that on a win. So I think this loss will set Joe up for the rest of his career.
To make those adjustments that perhaps were needed to get to that next level.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, Zhilei Zhang, of course, couldn't be here, but we feel like he will be watching this. Let's give a message to the cameras, to Zhang, what he can look forward to from the Juggernaut this time around. Joe.
Yeah, let's go big bang. Let's get the rematch on, and may the best man win this time. I'm coming to rip the title back.
Okay, excellent. Well, listen, first of all, just finally, Frank, we had a great atmosphere at the Copper Box. This man pulls in a good crowd. What kind of atmosphere are you expecting at Wembley Arena?
I think it's going to be a great atmosphere because the public know what's on the line, or what we talked about earlier. And this is a guy who doesn't shy away from anybody, and he's going straight in there. 3 months, just under 3 months' time, he's be back in there. Tickets are on sale tomorrow, as we know, from midday, AXS and Ticketmaster.com.uk. So get a ticket while you can, because it can be sold out, because you're going to get a great night, and you can watch it on TNT.
TNT. Okay, so that is it, ladies and gentlemen. September 23rd, the OVO Wembley Arena. Very important fight.